Hello and welcome to the Credit Academy. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the Vantage scoring model. But if you haven't seen last week's episode where we discussed in depth the FICO scoring model, be sure to click that link up in the top right-hand corner and go watch that video first. Now, on this video, we are going to highlight some of the differences between the Vantage and FICO scoring models and really kind of discern what the differences are specifically. So, before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's do a brief little intro about the Vantage model then. So honestly, while Vantage scores may not be the most commonly used scoring model, say for the FICO scoring model, they are still a very good scoring model to keep track of, namely because of the way they score themselves. Generally, you're going to have a higher credit score when it comes to your Vantage versus FICO. So starting things off with a brief little history on the Vantage scoring model, unlike FICO that has been around for decades, Vantage scores is a lot newer and actually was created by the three major credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion in the year of 2006. And according to Investopedia, and I quote here, Vantage Score claims to use machine learning techniques to generate a more accurate picture of a consumer's credit. So the whole idea here is that it's a overall more accurate snapshot of your credit portfolio. So Vantage scores may not be the most commonly used scoring model, but 9 out of the 10 largest banks in the United States actually use Vantage scores for at least one of their types of loans. And also 29 out of 100 of the largest credit unions also use them. So what are some of the minimum requirements then to get a Vantage score? Well, it's safe to say that Vantage tends to be friendly on individuals that are beginning their credit journey, and it honestly takes less credit activity to receive your score than, say, a FICO score does. Vantage scores can be produced with only one credit or trade line, as well as it requires only a month or two of a credit history on said credit line or trade line. So it is important to say that you will be able to see your Vantage scores before your FICO scores. So you don't have to wait that full 6 months for, say getting your first FICO score. You can begin checking your Vantage score a month or two into having your first line of credit. However, you do want to be careful because remember here, FICO scores are going to be the preferred model for a lot of credit lenders. So when it comes to applying for brand new lines of credit, they may not be looking at your Vantage scores. So where exactly can you check your Vantage score then? Well, there's a lot of third-party websites, but definitely the most popular one that comes to mind is going to be Credit Karma. Now, this is going to work both ways. A lot of people think Credit Karma is kind of the one-and-done credit score, but remember, it is a Vantage 3.0 score that is going to be shown on Credit Karma, not your FICO score. Credit Sesame is another great alternative for showing your Vantage 3.0 scores, and best of all, it's also free. And finally, Credit.com is going to be another great kind of credit education platform in addition to offering free Vantage 3.0 checking through Experian. So if you have any kind of credit products as well with the following banks, you can also check through their mobile apps for free to get your Vantage score. And those banks are going to be Capital One through CreditWise, as well as Chase, which is going to be their credit journey platform. So when it comes to the Vantage scoring model, how exactly is it calculated? Well, the most popular Vantage scoring model is going to be the 3.0. So for simplicity's sake, we're going to break down specifically how the Vantage 3.0 looks at categories and how they're weighted when it comes to your credit score. So starting things off, the payment history is going to be weighted at 40%, where if you remember in our FICO video, that was only weighted 35%. So overall, the kind of payment history category, it puts more of an emphasis on making your on-time payments and payments in full. Also, for the second most weighted category, the age and type of credit is going to be weighted at 21%, which is another very important category to consider, especially when you're building credit earlier on as well. And then credit utilization is going to individually be weighed at 20%. So remember, credit utilization is keeping kind of your, overall rate of usage on, say, a single line of credit below 30%. The closer you go to your credit limit, the more quote-unquote high risk you'll appear years. So generally what we recommend you do is keep your utilization rate between 1% and 10% of your total available credit. That way you have a little bit of breathing room between that 10 and 30% in case you do need to use a little bit more that month. The next category is going to be the balances, and that one's going to be weighted at 11% of your total score. After that, we have recent credit weighted at 5%, and then finally, a total available credit weighted at 3%. So originally, the VantageScore 1.0 and 2.0 had kind of credit ranges between 501 and 990, but the newest versions 3.0 and 4.0 wanted to make things a lot simpler for credit score viewers. So instead, they decided to opt for FICO's 300 to 850 models. So they do have a different kind of range though for where they consider, good credit versus bad credit. So let's dive on into that then. So a very poor credit score is going to be weighted at 300 to 499, where you have a poor credit score being weighted 500 to 600. After that, you have a fair credit score 601 to 660. Then you have a good credit score being 661 to 780, and finally an excellent or perfect credit score being 781 to 850. So overall, it has a little bit better of a grace when it comes to what category you're being considered. So according to Experian, 61% of Americans have a fair Vantage score or better, while 13% of that 61 have a fair score, 38 have a good score, and then 23 have a excellent and or that perfect score. So we've talked a little bit about Vantage scores, but what exactly are they used for then when it comes to, kind of getting your loans from lenders? Well, credit card issuers are going to be the number one. Now, this is very important whenever you're applying for a brand new credit card to really discern what kind of scoring model they are looking at during the application process, because things are weighted differently like we've discussed. So your scores are definitely going to be different between your FICO and Vantage. Another type of loan kind of lenders will be using this Vantage score for will be personal and installment loan companies, just like the FICO scores as well. Also, auto lenders and public services / utilities will also look at this. And then in addition to that, landlords will also look at this. So it's honestly a very important score, and you definitely don't want to discern it in any caliber. So the primary differences then between what is going to be used for Vantage and FICO are generally going to be the much bigger loans. Things like the mortgages as well as auto loans are generally going to kind of prefer that FICO scoring model when it comes to lenders. But that isn't to say all of them are going to be like that. You may find some outliers here and there, but just based on research, that's generally how things are going to pan out. Also, Vantage scores made it their mission to really help credit invisibles really kind of help build up their credit, because Vantage score generally kind of weighs you and considers you a lot higher than, say, the FICO scoring model. You may be able to qualify for a better Vantage card than a, say, FICO card with your current credit score. So it's a very powerful tool earlier on, and definitely when you're starting out with building credit, or maybe you're just now getting into credit repair, you may want to consider more kind of Vantage scoring used loans in that kind of way, just because you may be able to get better rates that way. And also, credit score expert John Earlsheimer credits Vantage score with really pioneering the way to the free credit market. It really opens the door to a lot more people getting into the credit sphere as well, and is once again just a fantastic way to begin building credit as well as repairing your credit. And at the end of the day, it also gives lenders a choice with which type of model they want to use, because previously FICO did have a pretty strong monopoly on the market when it came to credit scores. So the main takeaway from this video is just because Vantage score isn't as popular as FICO score doesn't mean you shouldn't count it out completely. It's still a very powerful scoring model and is still going to be used by a lot of different vendors. All in all, you just want to keep your eye out for, during your credit application process, which type of card they are going to be using or scoring model. So it's a very important factor to really consider. So that's about all I have for today. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning on into today's episode of the Credit Academy. And definitely be sure to check out the link down below for a free 15-minute consultation with us, the credit agents, as well as check out our other social media platforms like our podcast, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts for more credit information, and be sure to join our Facebook Credit Score Hackers group where you can get some help from our wonderful community over there. So once again, thank you guys so much for tuning on in, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.